from Princeton University, and welcome to this discussion about a new way to teach and learn about history called the Global History Lab. I'm Michael Hotchkiss from Princeton University's Office of Communications. Joining me today is Jeremy Adelman, Princeton's Henry Charles Lee Professor of History, along with three of his Princeton students. They are all exploring the history of the world since 1300. We'll start by getting an overview of the Global History Lab from Professor Adelman, and then we'll hear from the students about their experiences. So Professor Adelman, if you could start by just telling us what is the Global History Lab?
Thanks, Mike. So the Global History Lab is really a setting for students from Princeton and students from around the world to join together to learn globally about the history of the globe.
And so what is the goal of the class? What do you hope that students who participate, both those on campus and those who are participating through the NovoEd platform, what do you hope they'll take away from the class?
Well, my hope is, and I think you could also ask whether we're delivering to the students here, is to get a sense of the long arc of the increasingly interdependent world that began well before the Industrial Revolution, well before free trade, well before what we would now call globalization. So as a historian, I really want students to walk away with a sense, a deep sense of the past of our planet. What the NovoEd platform is really geared for, and why I think it's a unique opportunity for students from Princeton and around the world, is to do this globally, to produce knowledge together in teams, put it onto the website for people from around the world, including other Princeton teams, to be learning from each other, not just from me. So it's, in a sense, it's a model of a kind of horizontal learning opportunity.
And while you're focused on history, I also noticed that recently you've been discussing current events as well. Yeah. And you touched on the recent protests in Hong Kong. And so how does that sort of fit into what you're doing to be able to talk about not just the past, but bring it to the present as well?
Well, I do think in the last instance, what motivates a lot of us to learn something about the past is the world that we live in right now, and a sense of ourselves as co-members of this global community. And so the past is not so disconnected from the present, and so we have put on the site opportunities for students to think about current events in a more global, in a more historical perspective. So there's one thread on incidents in Hong Kong, there's a thread on Scotland. I'd like to start one on Russia and the Ukraine relations, because there are a lot of students on both sides of that border who are working together to try to understand the deep past of that particular conflict as well. So it's a way also to go beyond the headlines and to think about the origins of many of the issues we're now confronting nowadays.
And can you tell us a little bit, before we go further, and we'll talk to the students in a minute, but just set the stage for us about how students actually complete the class. So you have students on campus, you have students on the NovoEd platform who are working on similar questions. So just for folks who aren't as familiar with it, just briefly tell us about how it works.
Well, so how it works for the Princeton students is pretty straightforward for the Princeton students. They have exams to write. In fact, they have a midterm exam, and they're so very nervous right now because next week they have an exam. And they work together in more intimate team collaborative exercises on case studies. Then they produce material that they put on the site for the rest of the NovoEd community to read. In the wider world, what we've tried to design is a format in which what students are doing in Russia, in Brazil, Mexico, Thailand, and elsewhere is to work on the very same materials that the Princeton students are working on, so that Princeton students can look at the way in which students around the world are also tackling similar kinds of challenges. And so the mechanics are that every week there is a pair of lectures is put online, and case studies, 3 different case studies of historical events, conflicts, issues that are put out there for the students. They choose which case study in their teams they want to work on, and together collaboratively, and this is one of the keys. They write something, they have a week to write, they put it up onto the website for everybody else to read and comment on. So there's a lot of dialogue going back and forth between students on the site.
And can you tell us about how many students are participating?
So there are around 7,000 students from around the world currently online, and there are 60 students from Princeton enrolled in the course.
Great, thank you very much. So we'll use that as a chance to then actually talk to some of the students. Maybe we'll start with Junior Obo here, who we were chatting earlier, and you actually mentioned how you had looked at some of the presentations that have been put together by other people participating in the class, some of whom are at Princeton and some of whom are around the world on the NovoEd platform. So tell us about what you have been studying recently and what you've taken away from it.
Yes, so every week there are different case studies, and every student in our precept has a different role to play. So my role, 1 week I was a rapporteur, so my role is to go out and look at the case studies and find different perspectives so I could bring it to the discussion in precept. So what I found specifically with syphilis was that each different group brought something new to the table. So for example, syphilis, a group focused on the origins of syphilis, while another group focused on its like how it affected Europe, because what I found out was that syphilis, the origin, some people saw it as a punishment from God, some people saw it to have different astrological reasons why it happened, and also you kind of see that because of syphilis and because it was a New World disease, that you saw the spread of between Europe and the New World. It wasn't only just a spread of ideas, but it was also a spread of diseases and these new germs that affected Europe. And what I saw was that because of syphilis, it allowed for New World resources to be used in modern day medicine. And what I noticed was a group from, I'm not sure, it was from Pennsylvania, focused in on how syphilis, because of syphilis in Jiacum wood, they would help use it to be able to develop new medicines, in particular aspirin. So this was kind of cool because it helped you see different perspectives and brought it to the table to help enlarge your sense of how the global world is very interconnected and how things, like he was saying, like the Professor Adelman was saying before, how different perspectives helped enlarge what we know today.
So Allison, maybe take a chance to hear about what you have been working on. So tell us about what has been your group's area of focus.
Oh, okay, so the first 2 weeks we were actually the group that did work on the syphilis, so we were exploring how syphilis came to Europe from the New World.
Can I just interject here? Let me just clarify that syphilis, the reason why we're studying syphilis is because we're very interested in, and it's very topical nowadays, the ways in which viruses and germs spread across borders, including in the 15th and 16th century, and it was a major public health issue at the time, just on the eve of the scientific revolution. So we were interested in the global origins of medicine and science.
Great.
Mm-hmm. And so this week we're actually moving into the topic of scientific imperialism. So we are now in the late 18th century and focusing on how empires sent out explorers to go on these expeditions of the world and kind of look at new plans, see how they can be used for economic purposes to further the power and influence of these nations. So we haven't started that yet, but we will be working in our lab on Wednesday on that topic.
Professor Adelman, maybe you could sort of speak to the types of primary sources that are available to all of these students to use in their work.
Yeah. I mean, we spent a lot of time putting together the case studies so that because what was important for us was to give students an opportunity to hear voices from the past and voices from other places. As it were, to give a deep history of globalization means encountering other perspectives, not just between the students who are online, but also a view of what the world looked like to people in the 16th or 17th century, which is not necessarily our view. So what Junior was saying about the prominence that God had, for instance, for many people in understanding what was happening to their bodies, I think we need to understand the origins of our world by understanding the ways in which people had different kinds of cosmologies. And so the primary documents are like windows onto those perspectives and viewpoints.
Lindsay, So now could you sort of tell us about what your group has been exploring?
So we did mercantilism with a specific focus on the Dutch East India Company. So we did look at the documents, the charter, and also the coat of arms, and we just finished writing the essay. And what I really enjoy about this class is the fact that after we do submit our essays, I go back and look at other groups and how they answered the question, and I just find it interesting to see the different perspectives that people have, and then I compare that to our essay and the answers that we gave.
And so now tell us where we are in both the course and the course of history, and where the class goes from here, and how I understand for the folks who are participating for NovoEd that the first part of the course is coming to a close and folks have an opportunity to join the second half of the course. So tell us about that.
Part 2 opens on October 26th. We'll have an initial assignment exercise for individuals because we had asked all the Part 1 students to choose an image, put it up on the website for students to get to know each other to form teams. And a week later, after October 26th, if I did the counting, I could tell you what day that was, the first set of assignments will roll out for the second part of the course, and that will last for 6 weeks.
So do folks need to have done the first part of the course to
They do not.
participate?
Students can jump right in, start all over again. It doesn't require that you have had prior experiences. And as people join teams, there may be veterans from Part 1 and other NovoEd courses as well that can bring that experience in. So the rest of the world is welcome to join in at the beginning of Part 2. That's not a problem at all.
Great, great. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for joining us today. And you can get more information about this class and others at Princeton from our homepage at princeton.edu. And then for additional information about the NovoEd class, or if you're interested in signing up for Part 2, you can learn about that at novoed.com. Thanks for joining us.